Those not in favor, please say no. The ayes have it. Okay. Can we now do the introduction? Mr. Bojan may not know all of us, and you may not all know Mr. Bojan. I'm Honorable Swaibu Ture, member for Woodley East, and the chairperson of the Public Petitions Committee. Thank you.
I am Honorable Kemu Gassama, Lower Badibu, member of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good morning. I am Honorable Lamin Jesane, National Assembly member for Brikama South, a member of this committee.
Honorable Keba Kebaro, Combo South, Observer.
Good morning, Mamadou Ba, clerk to the committee.
Good morning, my name is Pan Suboja, former ambassador of the Gambia to the United Arab Emirates.
Thank you very much, members. Thank you very much, witness. Just to give a preliminary statement on this, that under the standing orders 125 of the Gambian National Assembly, the Public Petitions Committee is established to receive formal complaints from the public on matters of public concern and subsequently draw recommendations on these petitions to the plenary. So we've received this petition from people who call themselves Group of Gambians in the UAE sometime in 2020 during the coronavirus crisis. And that's what we have been looking at since then. So it's important to note that this is not witch hunting, just an inquiry to get to the bottom of issues so they'll be able to properly report to the National Assembly and make some recommendations on that to improve matters. So we are also assured that your rights and privileges as a witness are guaranteed and enshrined in the standing orders of the National Assembly. And that is like section 134(1). Every person summoned to give evidence or to produce any paper, book, record, or other document before the Assembly or any committee of the Assembly shall be entitled, in respect of his or her evidence or the production of such documents, to the same privilege as if he or she were appearing before a court. So it is the same process that the court would take, more or less, for the committee to receive evidence from witnesses, and the same guarantees that you have, just like you have before the court. Apart from that, what I want to add there is to say that the public petition, since it is the public petition, we hold virtually all our meetings in public, and it's covered by the press. So we are live. On that note, I thank you, and we can commence the inquiry. So be relaxed and simply just answer what you know about this matter. And if you don't know something, you just say, I don't. But also know that you'll be put on oath for affirmation. This time it will be affirmation. We don't have the Quran. So we just take affirmation to assure us that what you are telling us is the truth and nothing but the truth. And if you should tell us anything which is not true, it could tantamount to perjury, just like in court. So, okay, thank you. Yes, before we commence, the Vice Chair of the Public Petitions Committee can introduce us. We've done that in your absence. Thank you very much. We can now commence the inquiry. So, Mr. Bojang, we want you to just take us through you were the ambassador then at the UA when when a petition was written in 2020. Were you the ambassador?
Okay. All right. Yes, that's okay. Yes, I was the ambassador at the time of the petition.
Were you aware of a group of Gambians in 2020 that wrote a petition to your embassy, to your office, relating to repatriation issues, that they wanted to come to the Gambia, but they are trapped in UAE, and they have no way of coming, and everybody was struggling to get to their countries. Were you aware of that petition?
Well, yes, I'm aware of a petition by a group of Gambians, but not in the context that you mentioned when they wrote to the embassy. We first became aware of their petition when we saw a reporter presenting a claim, a video online in front of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Banjul, claiming to be representing a group of, I think, 6 or 7 Gambians who claim to have been stranded in the United Arab Emirates and didn't have any support. Our ministry, I think, contacted us because they were in receipt of a letter from the group. And the ministry had responded to the group. And 2 days after that, I think on the 10th of June, to be specific, we received a letter from the same group addressed to the embassy this time. But the letter, I think I have a copy of it, was not a complaint as such, but seeking support from the embassy to assist them to return home to the Gambia. So in effect, the letter we received was more or less seeking assistance or support from the embassy than complaint or petition in the embassy.
It's not, I don't think it's necessarily a complaint to the embassy or complaining about the embassy, but like you said, it was seeking assistance from the embassy, because the caption is urgent. Stranded Gambians in UAE seeking urgent assistance to return home. But when I mentioned petition, the petition is to the National Assembly. The group of Gambians are petitioning the National Assembly to look into the complaint that they have written to the embassy to seek for assistance, but they could not get any assistance from the embassy. That was the complaint. So since we are at par on that, can you help us explain what your embassy had done in respect to that request?
Okay. When, like I mentioned earlier, when we received the letter from this group of Gambians on the 10th of June, 2020, but their complaint actually, or their request for support, was preceded by efforts already initiated by the embassy. The embassy had written to the UAE authorities already, exactly on the 15th of April, at the height of the pandemic, when there was a lot of panic naturally at the time. to seek assistance and support from the government of the United Arab Emirates with a view to help us transport those Gambians that are caught up in the pandemic and wish to return to the Gambia. Obviously, at the time, all flights have been suspended. Commercially, there were no flights. And there was pandemonium, if you like, among citizens from all over the world trapped in UAE at the time who were desirous of returning home. You will recall, well, probably for the information of this August body, the UAE, about 80% of the population are all foreigners. The population is about 9 million people, a little over 9 million, and the citizens are less than 1 million. So naturally, when the pandemic broke out, it was a bit chaotic, even for the government of the UAE. And some states that had national airlines requested and were making arrangements if they are for their national carriers to be allowed to come in to fly their citizens out of the UAE. And the government wrote to embassies to offer their support through the foreign affairs to those states that are willing to bring their national carriers in so that they can open a corridor for them, the airspace, so that those flights can come in, because the airspace was shut down at the time. But obviously, Gambia was not one of those countries with a functional national airline, and at the time, the government was not making any offers to repatriate its citizens from anywhere in the world to come back to the Gambia. We thought, as our own initiative, to approach the government. We know they have national carriers in the form of Emirates Airline and Etihad. Emirates is that of Dubai, and Etihad is that of Abu Dhabi, to see if they can grant us assistance in form of loaning us one aircraft to bring the citizens for free. Now, at the time, Emirates was flying to Dakar. And because they already had a scheduled flight to Dakar, they opened that window so that those who wish to come to Senegal, they can use that flight. But it was not for free, it was on purely commercial. And you were charged double a return ticket because the flights went full, but they came back empty. So we approach and see if Gambians can be allowed to board the same flight, obviously aware of the fact that the land borders were also a challenge because borders were closed. So I think Gambians benefited from that, and later we had an issue, but we wrote to our ministry anyway to see if that can be logistically arranged and the Gambians can continue to use that service. But obviously at the time it was a little bit expensive also, and looking at the status of some of the Gambians involved at the time, this was a bit exorbitant. But in any case, we pursued to seek for a grant where we can have them repatriated at no cost to them. And once our requests got to them, we were fortunate to have a favorable consideration because they wrote back and requested that we submit the names and passport details of all the Gambians that are stranded in the UAE and wish to be returned home to see what can be done. And fortunately at the time, when we opened the mission in 2018, in fact 2 weeks even before I submitted my credentials, there was an existing Gambian association in Dubai. So we touched base with them, and we had organized our first meeting with them in Abu Dhabi in the form of a reception, where we created this forum for the general population of Gambians in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and also had an executive group with them, where just the executive and the embassy were present, so that we have confidential and urgent matters, we can discuss that at the executive level before we go to the general body. But we created the general body with the embassy also involved, so that every Gambian can have a platform to bring their issues to the ascension of the embassy without having to wait to formally write to us. So we use that platform to invite all Gambians formally, because we've been approached sporadically by the individuals, but we thought if we post it on the forum, it gives all the Gambians an opportunity, at least those that are registered with us, an opportunity to submit their names for this purpose. And we were able to collect 58 names. I think out of that 58 names, 42 had legal status, 40 or 42, and 18 were leaving but with expired visas or work permits or what have. And this was submitted to the UAE government. And then so the correspondence kept going back and forth. Obviously, it was clear initially what they were looking at, if we can fill a flight, they can arrange a commercial opening for us, just like they did for Senegal, where citizens can pay. But looking at the condition of our people, we were looking at a sort of a grant, more or less. But when the 58 names came, that was obviously just about a third of what we needed to fill an aircraft. So it wouldn't make commercial sense for them to give us a big aircraft. So when the discussions went further and further, at some point the decision was taken that they are willing to provide air tickets at no cost for them, that we should now submit a final list of those who are willing to travel. So we went back to the group again, and this time I think we had only 17 people who were willing to return to Uganda at the time. So, but by the time they got through to the issuance of the tickets, only 9 people wanted to come. And those 9, as far as I can recollect, were the ones provided with the tickets. The rest wanted to stay. Now, on the case of this other group, when we checked our records, because they also claim to be the leaders of a Gambian group, but that group is not known to us. And the group that's working with us, the association that's working with us, whose executives are known to us, I think included probably only one person on that list. So we are not aware of the group of Gambians that they claim to be represented. In any case, they have the right to be represented and to be supported by the embassy. And these, the efforts that we were doing, even before they contacted us, was extended to them. And I think one of the signatories is Mansour Fai. I can recognize that name, was among the list of the names that were submitted to the government of the UAE for the provision of an air ticket. So eventually, that's how things unfolded. The embassy had started initiatives even before this group of 7 made a petition to this August body, or contacted the embassy, the Foreign Affairs in the Gambia. And we have worked with the government of the UAE until at the point when the tickets were issued to those 9 people who decided they wanted to come. Yeah.
So could it have been that this group, which includes Mansour Fai, is Mansour Fai, Mohamed Kijera, Kinda Kante, Usman Jallo, Hassan Jallo, Omar Mane, Demba Baji, and Delam Yuri Ba. Could it be that this group was not aware of what you were doing on behalf of Gambians, or that they were not satisfied with what you were doing? What could have been the reason for them to write to you separately? Were they not aware of the bigger group in UAE or in Dubai?
Well, it's difficult to speak for them, but I think since 2018, we have met with the Gambian community on all national days, and we have met with the community and socialized with them on all our religious days. In fact, the first one we did, we held in Abu Dhabi because that's where the seat of government is. And that's where the embassy is located. But Dubai is the commercial center of UAE. So not surprisingly, that's where most Gambians are resident or in and around the Dubai area. So since that first event, we had consciously decided as an embassy to do these social activities in Dubai because it's easier for us to move with our families to join the majority of the Gambians in Dubai than for them to come. Because the first one we organized, we had to charter buses for them to drive them to Abu Dhabi, which is about 2 hours. So even outside of these national days and religious feasts, periodically we do organize soccer tournaments in Dubai, at the end of which tournaments we will normally sit and have an informal discussion with the Gambian crowd. So I think the association was publicized enough for every Gambian that has an interest in registering with the embassy to have had an opportunity to know about it. Because as a citizen also, the onus is on you, the responsibility is on you. It says at the back of your passport that if you travel, you are expected to register with your nearest mission for your own interest and protection, so that the embassy would be aware of your presence. And if you need consular service or you need any support, because we are your government in that country, you can be reached.
These people wrote their petition, they wrote their request to the embassy on the 10th. I believe it is on the 10th. On the 10th of June. And from the 10th of June to the time you get the offer, how long did it take from the 10th of June to the time you get the offer to have flights or tickets for these Gambians? How long did it take?
It took about 5 to 6 months.
5 to 6.
Yes, because well, the request started from April, but I think the ones that decided to return eventually returned early part of December. Obviously, at the time, I mean, we did our best to push as hard as possible, but we were beggars, and therefore we didn't have much say on the speed at which the process went. But we kept at it until eventually we had the tickets for the ones that wanted to come.
I think the Foreign Affairs eventually wrote a response on the 12th of June. They've written this on the 10th of June, but there is this response. According to this document, the embassy replied to their letter that they had previously submitted their request to the esteemed Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which responded to their request in an official statement reminding them that the Gambia government does not have the means during the period to repatriate all citizens who wish to return due to the global COVID-19 pandemic from different parts of the world. So that was, this one is on the 12th, and the reply from the Foreign Affairs was on the 12th, from the 10th to the 12th. It's like only 2 days. That response was done. So, but then the effort you people have made took almost 5 months before it could be fruitful.
Yes.
So, that simply means that, could that not mean that because of the long duration before they could get help, everybody tried to do whatever one could do? either go on your own or decide not to go at all. Since it took a long time before they could get help. Don't you think that is the reason why eventually only 9 were ready to come?
Well, for us, when they wrote on the 10th, and we replied to them also on the 12th, I think the ministry may have made a statement on the same date, but our letter was addressed to Mansour Fai, Mohamed Kijera, Kinda Kande, and Usman Jallo, Asan Jallo, Omar Mani, Demba Baji, Delam Yureba. That's also written from the embassy to the group in response to their letter. Yes, you are right. It took forever before we got support, but I think what we want to beg the August body to take note of is we didn't have our own resource to avail support to the Gambians at the time. If we had, we would have done it expeditiously. But at the time, even the states that were sending their own national carriers, and some that come to mind readily is Pakistan and India, the cost of the ticket was almost quadruple. Because it was, like I said, a panic, and everybody was trying to get out. What cost under 500 dirham at the time, the national airlines were charging almost 3,500 dirham. But I had some friends and they flew on this. So even in those cases, there are states, the governments were not giving this for free. The national carriers were charging passengers to bring their aircraft to Dubai to pick them up, and the citizens of those countries were responsible for paying for these things. In our case, obviously, you can imagine the government of UAE was dealing with the whole world within their country at the time, trying to facilitate for each and every one. And our case is a bit peculiar because we are asking for aid. We are not asking for a commercial plane that we are willing to pay or charter to bring our own. That could have been done expeditiously, probably. But like I said, since we were looking for assistance, we can only write, and it was at a time where things were not moving very fast because you didn't have, you lost the liberty of physical contact. So you can only call or send by email and pray that they respond. And if they don't respond, you call. But everybody was working from home, and everybody was under different kind of pressure at the time. So Gambia was 1 in a million of people who were trying to get their attention and their support. When it happened, you are right. At the time, everybody wanted to come home because of the panic. So you are thinking of just getting out and be with your family. But after 5 or 6 months, maybe the situation didn't look as bleak and as hopeless as when it started. And that resulted in some of the young people changing their mind and deciding to, wait a minute, after all, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe I don't need to go home. I can stay here and work. So they changed their minds.
What you're trying to say is that it's like the embassy. These embassies don't have any emergency funds for these purposes, for these emergency purposes. You have no emergency funds, no funding whatsoever should emergencies occur in your countries where Gambian embassies are located. Is that what you are saying? You don't have no funds at all to help Gambians?
Well, I'm not sure it can be blanketly stated like that, because before the pandemic, if we have a deceased Gambian, for example, we lost a professor. Immediately, the embassy stopped everything we were doing. We drove to the city where it happened and worked with the university where he was teaching to repatriate the body. But these are limited occurrences and under normal circumstances. But the COVID is an abnormal circumstance, and it's a pandemic where you need extraordinary resources because it has affected everybody at the same time. So that's extraordinary. And I think it's fair to say maybe there was no contingency for such. But on a normal day to day, if a Gambian runs into trouble, somebody, God forbid, passes away, or there's an emergency, the embassy is able to step in and work with and help that citizen.
Thank you. Mr. Bojang.
Yes.
My question is, was the embassy in Dubai open or working at the time when this letter was sent?
Well, when the letter was sent at the time, all the embassies were closed. So we were working from home.
Why working at home? Why not working at the embassy? Because we were here, well, with different situations. But we were here working. I don't know, but it's a different it's a different situation.
Well, I think you are right, but we also have to observe national laws and directives. It's a national shutdown, and everybody was directed to close. And later on, they had phase opening where embassies were allowed only 2 or 3 staff to go at the office, and we were even directed as to when we can open, as to when we can close. So we are basically following their national directives, which we are obliged to do. If they ask us to close and work from home, we had no option but to close.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bojang. I have a few questions for you, but for now I confine myself to one. Were you aware of the fact that other African countries were making an effort to evacuate their citizens from UAE to their various countries at the height of the pandemic? Thank you.
I'm not aware of that. Like I said, I'm aware of the Emirates flight to Dakar over a period, but they already had a scheduled service, and they had enough people to fill the flight multiple times a week. So it was easy for them to do. You were charged 2-way, even though you are going 1 way, but because the flight came empty. I've also seen, I think, read somewhere in their petition where they mentioned, I think that was erroneous, that the UAE was making offers to other African countries to repatriate their citizens. What UAE was doing actually officially, and they notified embassies, was work with those countries that have national airlines, and it was not limited to African countries, but are looking for the opening of because the airspace, like I mentioned, was shut down. So if you needed to come in, you then need to create a window for your airline to come in. And that's what they wrote to advise the embassies, that if you have a national carrier that wants to come to pick your citizens, then you'll work with the foreign affairs of the UAE so that they can create that window for you to allow your flight to come in.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair. Mr. Bojang, Your Excellency, I want to ask this specific question with regards to this particular issue of repatriation as the request you got from these people. I want to believe that our cake dough is very erratic. When you were there, this is an unforeseen circumstances. But during your time as an ambassador, have you ever received any contingency plan in a case where such emergency occur to repatriate Gambians from your area to the country? Though I know the foreign service is not easy, It entails a lot of fraud, and you look at every year we appropriate the budget here, but we know it's very erratic, it's not enough. But whether you, during your tenure as an ambassador, are you in receipt of any contingency budget to cater for such emergencies?
Thank you, Honorable, for that question. I think, unfortunately, I can say that we didn't have any funding for such. And this probably could be a learning curve for everybody. So, no, there was no funding for such.
Okay. According to the petitioners, there was funding. I don't know where they got the information. They said, we are aware that a significant amount of money has been made available by the Ministry of Finance to address immediate emergency situations as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. And that's why they think they are engaging you to seek for support. So they think there was money from the Ministry of Finance.
Well, that is news to me. It could be there was provision done locally, but maybe it was not availed to the embassies at the time. Because it would have been more pleasurable for us than to support our citizens and repatriate them during their difficult time.
Mr. Bojang, could you furnish the committee with any document to support our findings?
Well, yes, all these copies I can leave there in order, arrange them sequentially, so I can leave this with you.
Mr. Bojang, you did mention that you, of course, made a lot of efforts in order to help these people to leave UAE at the time. But you don't think that your effort was a little bit late, considering the plight of these people at that time, the time they needed your help? You don't think it was a little bit late? Because, as you mentioned, you said that the number was 40-something. But when the tickets were available, it has reduced to 9. And I believe that time, the fear and, of course, the fear was a bit reduced because maybe at that time, the pandemic was, of course, a little bit reduced, or it was under control at the time. So there was no need for these people, all of them, to leave UAE for the Gambia. Because remember, these are young people. They were there for a reason. So if they realize that it is no need for them to come back home, but the time they needed your help, don't you think that your effort was a little bit late? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. I agree with the last part of your statement, which I also mentioned earlier, that when we made a request for those wishing to go back to submit their details, we had about 58 of them that submitted their names. And obviously this was at the height of the pandemic. But 5 months later, people started seeing light at the end of the tunnel. And as such, some of the young people felt probably is not worthy of coming back home, since it looks like things are beginning to return to normalcy. On the other part, I think reasonably we've probably acted as fast as we can. Looking at the circumstances, we have the to start anything meaningful on our own at that level. But it's our own initiative, therefore, to get up and start doing something by initiating this request for technical support from the government of the UAE. And this was done in April, but their petition came in June. So the main body, like I said, appreciated what we were doing, but these records will show we have written, and it has all of them that have submitted their names to us. If we had a way, we were hoping that by May this would have happened in a month. But like I said, everything was shut down, even for the government of UAE. So everybody was working from home. So in most cases, we use our personal contacts and relationships with the people at the Foreign Affairs to help us push our request. And it came 5 months late, and we wish it came within the month we requested. But like I said, the beggar has no choice, and we were not in control of the speed at which they responded. They could have written back and said, sorry, we cannot, and we wouldn't be able to do anything. But the fact that they kept writing and requesting for more, wanted, I think one of the letters will show, they even wanted to know the legal status of people on the list, and they wanted their residence numbers and all of that. Because they are aware some are illegal before the pandemic and trying to hide behind the pandemic now and to get out of the country. But eventually it happened. Yes, I agree, it's late, but I think we've started fairly early enough into the pandemic.
Okay, the reason why I asked this question is that petitioners said phones were available, like it has been mentioned by our chair. And there's also said other African countries were evacuating their citizens from UAE at the time. So if Gambia or Gambian Embassy or Gambian Mission at UAE did not do as they said, for me, it is a bit worrying, This is the reason why I am asking this question. But like you rightly said, phones were not available. So I believe there is no reason of blaming you if phones were not available. Right. But if phones were available, as mentioned by the petitioners, something must be wrong somewhere. Thank you.
I agree with you. Okay. Yes, I think I agree with him. Unfortunately, sometimes I think some of the citizens with due respect make allegations based on informal grapevine information. But certainly, if there were funds, you guys should be, this August body should be able to verify that. So the embassy would not sit here and try to mislead this body because these are verifiable details. If funds were available, that shouldn't be any secret to you. But I can say authoritatively that mission level, there was no funding available for this purpose.
Yes, I just want to say the former ambassador has made it clear that there is no fund available, and if there is also, we will be in the future. But I think it is good for us to invite the petitioners as well to ask them where did they get the source from, because sometimes petition are allegation. We did finding in both sides. I'm not disputing what they are saying, but sometimes we need to balance both sides also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bojan? Oh, you are, okay.
Thank you so much. Mr. Boja, to be precise here, at the tail end of the repatriation, I think, is it 7 or 9 people that voluntarily came? 9, huh? Then again, I want to inquire, actually, out of these people, do they also contribute anything in repatriating them to Senegal? And are you aware whether from bringing them to Senegal, they were able to reach the Gambia? Do you do any facilitation?
I need to probably refresh my collection, but I know the support was to Banjul. Yes.
100% donated by the UAE government?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Bojan, I think the petitioners are complaining. That's just a complaint. That maybe because they were not part of that organized group, they were not given the listening ear to the embassy, by the embassy. Is that the case? Do you think that's the case?
No, I don't think that's the case. Like I said, we received their letter for support on 10th, and they were replied to on the 12th. Myself, I've spoken on the phone severally with Mohamed Kijera and Mansour Fai. So if they can be able to talk to the ambassador humbly on mission of giving them the face. Because like I said, several people have worked with the embassy who are not in the main group, and we've given them the support they desire, because the mission is their home, is their government, so we are obliged to receive all Gambians. And sometimes we've taken them in our personal homes when they are distressed and they need to recover. We've done that for quite a few people, but we see that as being in their service. So no, I don't think that has anything to do with this. We just want to encourage all Gambians, really, wherever you are. Obviously, we all don't get along. When you have these main bodies, it's a big challenge. We have different political leanings. We have different backgrounds, so people sometimes don't get along, and because of that, they withdraw from the main bodies. But that notwithstanding, as an embassy, regardless of your background or your political affiliation, we represent every Gambian, and we try to preach that at every occasion we have with them, and also encourage them to keep politics out of their relationships, that when we meet in foreign land, we are one family. We are one brothers and sisters, all from the same mother and father, and we should support each other. So we have troublemakers, naturally, because once in a while on the group, we see people post very adverse commentaries, whether politically or socially, and this can create affliction among the membership. But that notwithstanding, generally, 90% of the time, we all get along. And certainly their membership or lack of it does not have any influence on how they are treated by the embassy.
Did your embassy make any attempt to contact the Ghanaian or Senegalese governments? Because they were repatriating, according to the petitioners, they were repatriating their citizens at the time from the 12th to the 16th of June. There was a lot of arrangement made by some of these governments to bring their people. So the petitioners were of the thought that the embassy could easily consult some of those governments to put them in, to accommodate them in their flights, so that all the scrambling that was done there, because some of them were with their families, so they were having children, etc., etc. So they were thinking that every effort should be done by the embassy to ensure that they leave that country at the time. Did you make any effort to actually consult or contact the Senegalese authorities that were there, or the Ghanaian authorities that were preparing to bring their people back to their countries, repatriate, sort of?
We have not contacted the Ghanaian authorities, but the Senegalese ambassador, who was a personal friend, we were constantly consulting. And this is why Gambians were allowed on the Emirates flights from Dubai to Dakar. But they had to also have a special permission for them to be able to travel by land. And we had instances where family members met them in Dakar to come by land. But obviously Senegal has to give them that green light. And that was possible because we are consulting with our counterparts in UAE. So yes, we have not consulted Ghana because of the distance, but we consulted with Senegal, the ambassador and his team. That's why Gambians were allowed on that flight. But like I mentioned, that was not for free. And some of them had financial challenges for our own citizens at the time, because we were paying more than twice what the ticket cost normally would have been to even join that flight to Dakar. But it was open to anybody, especially Gambians, if they can afford. Though the key was getting longer because there were more citizens, there were more Senegalese and what have you. So it has to be first come, first served basis.
Thank you. Mr. Bojang, what would you say to this? Some of the petitioners were even ready to pay for their own tickets. All that they needed from you at the time was to make things work easy for them, because then, you were the representative of the Gambian government in UAE.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, when we requested for support, the UAE government wanted to see how many persons are involved. Because commercially, what they can do, if you have enough citizens wanting to go who can fill an aircraft, then they can allocate an aircraft to you. We had 53 respondents, so that was not possible. But those who were willing to pay had an opportunity to come on Emirates via Dakar. From Dakar, you have to come by land. And that avenue was open. So I'm surprised when they say that was not done, because this opportunity was available. Yeah.
This is exactly what they said in the petition.
Well, I guess I don't have control over what they can say in their petition, but I can only report what was available. So sometimes, again, they are entitled to that. But anyway, I can also say authoritatively that this arrangement was available to Gambians via Dakar. And we cannot arrange for a flight because we didn't have enough to fill an aircraft to come from Gambia. And they supported us really, UAE, because at the end of pandemic, they also gave us a lot of PPEs, where they had a full cargo flight Etihad from Abu Dhabi to Gambia to deliver for support to the government in the fight at the peak of things when our health personnel were in need of a lot of PPEs. So it's a very friendly country that has really supported us.
Mr. Bojang, in your submission, you make two categories of group: the one with legal status and the undocumented ones. During your tenure as an ambassador, do you succeeded in helping them to legalize their stay or to bring them under one umbrella, like the association?
We do not get directly involved because it's a highly commercialized country. Getting a visa to come to UAE really is like drinking water. But there's a catch-22, and most of the younger people didn't know that. And that's why when we have these events with the communities there, we blame the veterans. Because sometimes what they do is mislead the young ones here and charge them a lot of money, sometimes in excess of 100,000, to say, we'll get you a job. When you come, a visa, you come, we'll find you a job. And life will be, glossy, but it's so half the time people come, because when you pay $100, $150 today, within 72 hours you will get a visa. But what you get is 1 month visa. Once you come, your visa expires. You are charged 100 dirham a day until you regularize your visa. But most of them go in hiding. So we don't even know about them until when they are arrested and they are taken to prisons. So as a result, we dedicated every Thursday where our consular services and the protocol welfare officers go around the prisons from Abu Dhabi to Dubai to visit with those citizens and see what can be done. Where it's possible, we go through, they have a support system where we can facilitate for them to have a ticket to come home where possible. But once you are in the country, the responsibility of your legal status, as in any other country, is that of the individual himself.
Mr. Bojan, knowing that I think you are aware of the situation in Tunisia. Our Gambian brothers are still stranded there and sisters. If you watch international news, you will see. So we have this situation occurring once in a while, and it's very concerning. So I believe it is the same disaster. We call this thing a disaster, a crisis, which has also happened not only in UAE but also in other places. So we must learn from this and see what can this country do to come up with a contingency fund or something. What can you went through the experience, you know how the pressure that was put on you during the time, it was a crisis. What can we learn from this? What can we do if such things occur? Like it is happening in Tunisia, as I said. What can we learn from this, in your opinion?
Thank you for inviting my thoughts on this. I think, if anything, we can learn from this. It's crystal clear that we need a national plan on this. Yes, maintaining overseas missions can be very demanding financially for any government. But even if they are not, the funds are not localized at the embassies, I think we should have a plan where it is at least held at the ministry level, so that when you have isolated incidents like we are seeing in Tunis now, which is quite disheartening, we are able to respond expeditiously and bring our citizens back home. So I think there's a need really to have sort of an emergency plan that can be held at base if it is not localized, because we may not have enough funds to have these monies lying at each of the missions, but unless it's a worldwide pandemic, which hardly comes by, maybe once in every 100 years. But when you have sporadic incidents like we are seeing in Tunisia now, which needs immediate attention, we are able to intervene expeditiously.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bojang. I think unless anybody has, then we close the curtain here. We thank you very much for taking all the time to answer to our call. Yes. She's reminding me about the documents. Yes. So Stephen. Okay, we can draw the curtain here and pray. And close. Thank you very much.